Hey boys, welcome back to the channel, and it's going to be another real life footy discussion video here. As the title will suggest, we're gonna be talking about my almighty Brisbane Broncos. What a fall from grace. I was gonna make a video, sort of a bit of a rant video, a bit of a discussion video a few weeks ago about the Broncos, and then I think I just didn't get a chance to do it. And then they obviously won against the Bulldogs, and don't get me wrong, I wasn't overly impressed with their performance against the Bulldogs, but there was a little bit of hope there, I guess, because they got the win. A couple of players started to look a little better, and I thought next week Fifita. Well, at the time, Fifita was going to be back, Kotoni Staggs was going to be back, and I thought, a little bit of momentum. There was still a glimmer of hope there that maybe the Broncos can get on a bit of a roll, but that got snuffed out very quickly. And honestly, that performance against the Tigers, and it's been said by pretty much everybody, that's going to be the worst. That's going to be the worst performance I've ever witnessed in a team. There's probably been other games from clubs that have been as bad, but as a Broncos supporter, and you look back even this year, I mean, there's been bigger score lines. It's been a shocking year. A shocking resumption. But that Tigers team, is that a team that should be putting 48 points to zip on a club? No, they're not a, they played very well, not to take anything away from the Tigers, they played good footy, everything was going off for them, but they're not a Parramatta Eels, they're not a Rooster, they're not a Melbourne Storm team, so to dish up a performance like that is just, it's very embarrassing for the club. And before I get into more discussions, I thought I would go through the team, and sort of I'm gonna talk about just each player quickly and just say if I think they should even be in the team to start with. Now, before I actually get into that, I do want to say, not an excuse, but the Broncos have been decimated by injuries, right? So you look at, like I said before, I thought Fifita would be back and Staggs would be back. I mean, they're probably two of our best players. Jake Turpin, massive loss. I mean, the dummy half department has been a bit of a huge struggle. And the McCulloch, letting McCulloch go was also probably not a great idea. And then there's plenty of other injuries on top of that. Alex Glenn going down once again. A lot going against the Broncos, but that is not an excuse. It's not an excuse to lose like that. Now, is a team like this team against the Tigers, honestly, it's a pretty awful team. When I look at this lineup, I wasn't confident. I tipped the Tigers to win this game. I honestly didn't think the Broncos would win with the team they had on paper. But it's not an excuse to perform like that. I mean, if you're playing NRL, you've got to, it's got to be better than that. So I can understand the Broncos with their injuries not being in the top 8. I'm fine with that. I mean, their team, they got a lot of injuries. They got a lot of fresh faces. Some players I don't think should be there. I can understand them losing more games than winning at the moment, but to lose the way they are, yeah, there's something not right. So let's go through the team on paper. So we start off with the fullback, Tesi Niu. I feel very sorry for Niu. I personally do not think he should be in the team at this stage. He is not ready. He is not ready for NRL first grade at all. Honestly, him off the bench was working okay, and I could understand him being on the bench to come on, last 10 minutes or throw him on a bit earlier to have a bit of a roaming role, but he is not. He is far from ready to be an NRL standard fullback. And I feel sorry because he's got the potential. I mean, he's got talent. He's got the potential. But and we'll talk. So that's the other point of this is Anthony Seibold. I know I said I'd go through the list, but I keep I keep thinking of other things to sort of talk about before I go through the list of players. Now, I've always sort of been on the side of not blaming the coaches as much as other people. Now, don't get me wrong, I feel like some clubs, the coaches are definitely, they shouldn't be there. And I actually find it funny, this is a little off topic, but Dean Pay is a funny one to me because so many people have been criticizing Dean Pay for seasons now, and as soon as he's gone now, people are coming to his defense. I'm shaking my head and and in disbelief at how many people are sort of acting like Dean Pay is treated badly and blah blah blah. They were calling for his head for seasons, but that's a discussion for another day. But Anthony Seibold, I had a little bit of sympathy for him at the start of the year and also with injuries, but honestly, some of his team selection and just lack of accountability to certain players, I have no sympathy for Seibold. I think he's contributed immensely to this. Obviously, myself and everyone else doesn't know the ins and outs and what's happening with the club and if there's dramas between coach and players and between players. We have no idea about that. There's only rumors and whatnot. So at the end of the day, myself and anyone else like me talking, I know little to nothing. so take everything I say with a grain of salt. But I think Seibold is a massive problem, and I still just it baffles me to this day. Even when it originally happened, I did not understand why on earth the Broncos were trying to get rid of Wayne Bennett to swap him with Anthony Seibold. I couldn't understand for the life of me why they were trying to do it. But yeah, so testing you. I think Seibold is just completely screwed over Niu, and I'm pretty mad about it too, because I feel like, honestly, coming into a team like this and being on the end of these beltings, it could be season ruining for Niu. Now, he looks like a good player, and he could definitely bounce back. I mean, he's 18 years old. There's plenty of time for him to get his confidence back and get back into the NRL and perform. I mean, he's still there. Well, actually, he's dropped now, but I'm mad. I'm mad. Seibold is like, he could have ruined Niu's career, a future star, and he's brought him in. He's not ready to be a starting fullback, and he's brought him into a team with no confidence and zero form, and just, I don't know what is expected. And there's more about this, because like even when it originally happened, the fullback, I mean, Jermaine Azarko, who's the winger, so Azarko, his form has gone down the absolute drain, but Azarko is a confidence player. Like he gets into runs where he looks like an absolute world beater. And when he's a bit out of form, a bit out of confidence, he is awful. Like he makes so many unforced errors. Defensively, he's weak. Against the Tigers, he was terrible. I was losing my mind at how bad Azarko played against the Tigers. But he's out of confidence. He's out of form. He's out of favour, apparently. And I don't blame him. Because Seibold has completely screwed over Azarko as well. Like Azarko, he obviously started the year at fullback with Jack Bird's injury, and I personally thought Azarko should be the starting fullback from the get-go, and Azarko was playing well. He was playing very good. He was doing his job. He was looking dangerous. He was getting involved, and then he had he didn't play too badly. He came up with a couple areas now and again, but that's when the Broncos started to hit, well, since the resumption, the Broncos have been terrible, but Azarko was still decent. Like he wasn't the guy you would pin their poor form on. He was sort of what's the word? He sort of felt the effects of the poor form, just with lack of possession and just no attacking footy. But he was decent at fullback. And then Seabold, just like he puts Niu on the bench and then takes Zarko off like 10 minutes to go in matches. And I don't know what the hell he's expecting to happen. I don't. Just thinking about it is blowing my freaking mind, because the Broncos are down by a lot. He brings Niu on for 10 minutes and he thinks Niu's going to win them the game. I don't understand the thought process. Like, Niu's just going out into the slaughterhouse basically because the Broncos are already playing terrible and getting thumped. He puts Niu on, hooks Zarko to bring his confidence down, and that, both players just get completely screwed over. And then obviously Zarko is talked about being dropped, and then they get injuries, so he has to stick with him. And I completely understand Zarko being a bit like out of the rhythm of the game. Now, don't get me wrong. I mean, there's still NRL players. They get paid good money to play. I mean, it's no real excuse to not turn up and play well. But if you're gonna get dropped and then you're only in because of an injury, there's different factors there, and I don't think Zarko should have been dropped from fullback to begin with. So those two players are a big just what the hell is Seabold thinking? Then we move on to everyone's favorite, Darius Boyd. Now, Boyd, I cannot stand Boyd. I every time I watch the Broncos, dude, I don't feel more anger towards a player, and I feel bad at times because, I mean, Boyd, he's been a great player, and I don't know, I just it just makes me mad because he's so terrible now. He is nowhere near NRL level quality. Like, he is just he's just not up to the standard whatsoever. He provides zero. He provides zero to their team. Like, defensively, he's atrocious. One-on-one, like, to his credit, like, one-on-one, if a player runs directly at him, like, he's a solid defender. But any sort of, I mean, he showed this his last sort of, foray at fullback. That's why he got dropped from fullback, because anyone that put any sort of step on him or any directional, like, he just stood there. He was like stuck in mud. He has I don't even understand how he's so terrible with his lateral movement. He plays like he's 40 years old. I don't understand that he shouldn't be out on the field. And then in attack, he provides, like, literally zero. He the Broncos, at times look decent going out to the edges. An early bit of ball out to Darius Boyd. Usually you want to get early ball to your centers and they can do a little bit of dancing, take on the opposing center, set up their winger. Darius Boyd catches it in good, some room to move, sprints for about 5 meters, and then cuts back on the left and goes back in field and gets tackled and does nothing. I don't understand how he's there. And this is another thing with Seabold, and another reason why I just cannot stand him. He's not dropping him. And we'll get to two players later that also should be dropped and should have been dropped, a couple of weeks ago. I mean, Boyd should have been dropped a year ago, if not more. And people could say that they don't have players to put in, with the compounded injuries as well. Like, it's fair, but also I call BS, because it's the Broncos. They've got just stacks of reserve players they could call upon. Now, obviously, it is a little trickier in this day and age because, the reserve players aren't playing in the Q Cup and, the feeder comps and whatnot, but they could stick anyone. I mean, you look at the next guy here, Richard Kennar, who was in for Herbie Farnworth. He was actually pretty good. I actually thought Kennar was not too bad. He wasn't fantastic, but I thought Kennar, his first game after not playing for ages, not playing any sort of other matches, he was far better than Darius Boyd. He was far better than Darius Boyd. So, like, are you going to tell me that Darius Boyd should be there ahead of Kennar? No way. If that's the best they got, then Kennar should have been ahead of Boyd. And, you know, if Farnworth wasn't injured, then he should have been there. If Tony Staggs is back, you know, there's other players that can come in. They could put anyone ahead of Boyd. And it's just, that's the thing, is like players like Azarko and the next guy here, I thought, I forgot about it, Xavier Coates, but I thought it was going to be, Corey Oates is in the back row. But Corey Oates is like in a similar boat to Azarko. Corey Oates has been now shifted to the back row, which, I don't know. I just, that one doesn't really make sense to me either. Like, I don't really get it. I mean, I always thought that Corey Oates could make a decent back row option, but to put him into the back row when the Broncos are already playing terrible, they're out of confidence, they're out of form. Like, I don't understand the shift to the back row at this stage. Like, it just doesn't make sense. It just doesn't make any goddamn sense to me. And Corey Oates has been like told he's going to be getting dropped pretty much every week, and then an injury happens and he's back in the team like Jermaine Azarko. And there's players like those that are, you know, they haven't been great. I'm not saying Corey Oates and Azarko have been world beaters. They've you know, like I said, they've suffered the ill effects of every play. They've been pretty bad, but they have not been the reason for the big beatings. You know, they're not the guys that are really deserving to get dropped, but they're the ones that keep getting talked about getting dropped. You got guys like Darius Boyd, Anthony Milford, and Brody Croft that just cannot get dropped. They cannot get dropped. They can't play bad enough to get dropped, apparently. So the you know, I don't know. The players in the sheds must be feeling a little bit, you know, not great, I guess. If Seibold's not going to make it's not even the tough decision. That's the thing that gets me. It's like, I mean, they talked about it a lot, like Benji Marshall getting dropped the week previous. And, you know, that's a tough decision because Benji was actually playing decent footy. He had a bit of a bad week, came up with a lot of missed tackles, and Maguire dropped him. Like, that's a tough decision. Like, a lot of people were, you know, not happy about that. I thought it was a pretty silly move. But dropping Darius Boyd, dropping Brody Croft, dropping Anthony Milford, that is not a tough decision. Like, no Broncos fans, no other teams fans are going to look at that and be like, wow, I can't believe he dropped Darius Boyd. No one's going to think that. Like, it doesn't make any sense. It just sort of feels like Seibold, like, he's here, like, obviously he's hearing everybody saying that he should do it, and, you know, he's being stubborn and he thinks he knows better and is just sticking with them and thinking it's going to turn around by showing them faith. But, you know, they don't look like they want to be there. Like, Darius Boyd does not look like he wants to be playing football at all. Like, I'm sure he likes the money, but he doesn't look like he wants to be out on the pitch, dude. He just, oh, it kills me every time. But the next guy here is Xavier Coates. You know, he's been a revelation. He's been the one guy to get me excited. And honestly, you know, he showed a lot in that Tigers game, in my opinion. I thought he was excellent against the Tigers. Now, you might be like, what are you talking about? But I thought Coates was great. You know, he took a lot of tough carries. He got belted pretty much every time he took it up, but he kept turning up. You know, that was a game where if you're a winger, you know, if you're an Azarko or Xavier Coates, it's pretty easy to just hide out on the wing and just sort of try to zone out of the match. But young Xavier Coates just kept taking those tough runs, kept getting belted, and just kept trying, you know. And I got a little bit annoyed. Obviously, the thing with the Broncos not trying was true, but when Billy Walters scored that freakish try, it was a great try. It was a fantastic try. The little soccer skills, and then won the race to the footy. I was pretty annoyed because the commentators were acting like Xavier Coates, and I think it was Croft, the other one, chasing. They're acting like they didn't want the ball as much as Billy Walters. It was complete garbage, dude. Like, that's just that annoys me because obviously you can criticize the Broncos and a lot of their players in that game and other matches, but they're just sort of piling on. That was just a freakish try, and Billy Walters had the running. Like it's not like they started at the same speed at the same place. Like Billy Walters had the running. Xavier Coates was obviously a little close to the footy, but he had to stop, turn around, and then chase the ball, and he tried to get there. So I was a little bit frustrated with that because Xavier Coates did, he put in a good effort, and I thought he was sort of clumped into some of the other players not putting in the effort, and I was like, no, he put in the effort to get back there and stop the try, dude. I don't know what more you wanted him to do. It was just a great effort by Billy Walters, but a little bit of a rant about that, because I think Xavier Coates is he's just a good player. He's a very good player. He's got a lot of talent, and he's got the toughness. So I think he's been one guy that I've been impressed with regardless. Next guy here, Anthony Milford. Yeah, I mean this one's a simple one. Milford should have been dropped couple of games ago. Really, I'm going to talk about both these guys at the same time, Brodie Croft and Milford. Now, I want to say this. I actually think Milford has been far better than Brodie Croft, and I sometimes do feel a little sorry for Milford because, I think he cops most of the criticism. I think Croft is starting to now, but for the first few rounds, Milford was copping the bulk of the criticism. Like, everyone was up Milford, and I mean, I'm not saying it's unjustified because Milford hasn't been great, but Brodie Croft has been absolutely terrible. I actually can't believe how bad Brodie Croft has played. I thought it was a good signing. I thought it was a good signing, dude. And I thought Croft would do a good job, and he did. He did do a good job the opening 2 rounds. The resumption, he's been one of the worst players in the comp. His kicking game is some of the worst kicks I've ever seen. Like, he missed kicks nearly every single ball. Who was it? Who said this? I think it might have been Sterling or Johns, and it made a lot of sense. And it was something I was looking at as well. But like, every time Brodie Croft takes the line on, he just sort of does it for like a number. It just sort of seems like Brodie Croft will run it on a certain play. Like, he'll think, okay, I've passed it like 3 times. This time I'm going to run the footy. It's like he's not looking at what's going on. Like, every time he runs the football, he runs into the defense. Like, there's never any hole there when he runs the footy. Like, I don't mind a halfback just taking the line on, trying to get into the game, but Brodie Croft does it every time he runs it. He gets swamped. Like, and I'm like, there's room outside. Why are you running? So I don't know. Croft is just, and again, I feel bad. I mean, I feel bad for most of the Broncos players, apart from Darius Boyd. I fucking hate Darius Boyd. But I feel bad for most of the Broncos players. Because, I mean, I know people were carrying on about them getting emotional. They were getting emotional one week, but they were laughing the week before. That's complete bullshit. Like, I think Croft would be struggling. Like, I feel Croft is definitely one of the guys I feel most sympathy for, because he's trying. Like, he is out there trying, but he is just not performing. And it's another one where I'm just like, Seibold, what are you doing? Like, you're just leaving Croft out there to get absolutely decimated. Now, again, he's on good money, and you might be like, he's just got to suck it up and play better, but you're risking like ruining his career. Like, you got to get him out. Like, you got to do something. You can't just, it's not going to fix. Like, confidence is not something that, I mean, it can just click, but the fact the whole team is out of form and confidence, like, it's not going to click. And he's not dropping him. He's not giving him like a spell. Like, it doesn't even have to be like drop, like just give him a spell for a week. I don't know. Like, Croft is obviously struggling, and you can tell, like, as soon as that Tigers game, a few things go their way, or goes against them, I should say, the heads drop, and it's like, here we go again, and that's exactly what happens. So, yeah, I mean, Croft has been terrible, and I don't know what the hell Seabold's doing, because this week he's dropped Tessiniu, like I said. So again, I don't know. I don't know if I've seen a couple of, like, joking comments, like Seabold is he's in there to sabotage the Broncos, and it sort of feels like that. It sort of feels like he's trying to ruin some of these young guys' careers, especially Tessiniu. So Milford has gone to fullback. Yeah, he's putting Milford to fullback. He's putting Brodie Croft to 5'8", and Dearden is coming into the 7 spot. And Boyd is retaining his position. Yeah. So he's not dropping anybody. He's not dropping any of the senior players that are playing some of the worst football you'll ever witness. Baffles the mind. But that's the back line. Move on to the forward pack. Tavita Pengai Jr. Now, he's a very controversial player, but I love Pengai Jr. and I think he gets way too harshly criticized. I think, I personally think he is one of the only guys in the Broncos forward pack, or in the whole team, honestly, that actually looks like he is trying to win matches. Some of the other guys are just going through the motions, and a couple of their forwards, obviously I'll get down the list, and a couple of their forwards are playing well, and are not to be blamed too much. But Pengai Jr. and even those guys that are playing well, I feel like they are sort of just going through the motions. But Pengai Jr. actually tries. Like, he comes up with the odd error for sure, but if it wasn't for Pengai Jr., the Broncos wouldn't even pose a threat at all. Now, they didn't score any points against the Tigers, but without Pengai Jr., they wouldn't look like even breaking the line at all. Like, Pengai Jr. is the only one that looks dangerous. He's the only one that tries anything out there. Yeah, I'm very happy Pengai Jr. is in the team, and I think he gets way too heavily criticized for the odd mistake. Like, I can't understand it. Now, I can understand people getting annoyed with him for his, ill-discipline. But even with that, I get a little frustrated, because he can do something pretty trivial and get suspended now for like 3 or 4 weeks, and then someone else, doesn't cop anything. And it's just, the carryover is just such a nonsense thing. That's a discussion for another day as well. But Pengai Jr., that's my thoughts on Pengai. Isaac Luke, dummy half. This one's a weird one, because probably Luke has been copying it a lot. I actually think Luke has been pretty solid for the Broncos since coming over. I think he's done his job pretty well. I mean, again, like, what's he meant to do? I think he's defended pretty strongly, and I think he's looked okay running from dummy half. Like, it's one of those ones where any dummy half playing in this Broncos pack would look terrible. Like, they're getting monstered. They're dropping the footy. The opposition is just constantly attacking. So I think Isaac Luke has actually been pretty good. He's been heavily criticized as well, but I think he's been pretty good. I just, there's not much else to say about that one. Next guy here, Payne Haas. Obviously, I mean, he's been a standout for the Broncos. I do want to call out one thing, though. That was a little bit frustrating, again, against the Tigers, because, Payne Haas, they never want to criticize Payne Haas. They will do everything in their power never to say a bad word about Payne Haas. And for the most part, it's warranted, because he puts in everything. But early in the match, when Harry Grant scored that try, they were bagging up Milford, who was at marker, who didn't do a great job from marker, but you know, he can't defend both sides of the play the ball. Like, I don't really know what they wanted him to do. Payne Haas, on the other hand, didn't move up at all from the try line and just let Harry Grant score the softest try you'll ever see. And this was before the Broncos, you know, it was before they were gassed. It was early in the match, and I'm just like, they were constantly blaming Anthony Milford for his marker defense, but then Payne Haas, who is the wonder child, provided some of the softest defense you'll see on your try line in the opening like 10 minutes, and I'm just like, they're not saying anything about it. I'm like, what is happening? Like, even that, I mean, Payne Haas has been exceptional for the Broncos, and he puts in every week, but even him, he has come up with some very, very poor defensive efforts this year. Like, there's been quite a few times where Payne Haas has come up with pretty poor defensive efforts. And again, I don't blame Haas. Like, he's had to carry the forward pack for a long time now, with the injuries and Pangai being suspended at times, and the inexperience. And I blame Seabold for the way he uses Payne Haas. I don't understand why, and I don't understand the minutes he plays. Like, obviously, he's got a big motor, he can go a long time, but you look at the elite props in the comp, and they could play bigger minutes. I mean, Junior Paulo, Papali, Clemmer, you know, there's more of them, but those guys, they can play big minutes, but the ideal, you know, Marty DePau, Fanua Blake, those type of guys, the ideal is like, you know, the first 25, 30 minutes, depending on how much defense and attack you get to do, take them off for like 20, 25 minutes and then bring them back on. I don't understand why at times they make Payne Haas play like the full 80, sometimes the full 70. Other times he'll play like 45, 50 minutes straight, and then he'll take him off for like 10 minutes. It just doesn't make sense. Like, I just don't know why you wouldn't just put him like on for like 30 minutes, you know, you want him to be impact. Like, it's just using him as like a workhorse. And I mean, look at the size. Like, you just look at the size of Payne Haas. You look at the footwork. You look at the speed, the power. Why would you want to use Payne Haas as just this workhorse, make 20 carries, make 50 tackles, and provide not that much impact? Why wouldn't you want to play him for like 55, 60 minutes and get him to be a bit more impactful? Get the offload, get the tackle break. The strategy in his like bench and, you know, interchange. That's the other thing. just a side note, this video is going to go on. It's already like 30 minutes, so get ready for that. But this is another thing I'm just getting so frustrated with Seabold. I forgot to talk about it with Pangai Jr. But Pangai Jr., he apparently got hooked after like 16 minutes. What for? Now, I was in disbelief because, yeah, he took him off. It was about 16 minutes, and he clearly wasn't fatigued. He missed like one tackle, right? And it was that one where Duahi was crabbing across field, and like 4 or 5 Broncos players missed him, and Pangai Jr. tried to get out of the line and get him, and he missed him. Okay, I mean, it's a missed tackle, fair enough. It's not great, but did he really hook him for that? Like, it's not like Pangai did like 2 offloads inside their 10-meter line and they dropped the footy and the Tigers scored. If he did that, okay, I can understand him hooking him after 15 minutes, but did he really hook him for a missed tackle? Like, are you serious? Are you serious? And then he brought him back like 10 minutes later, and then he was off like 15 minutes, and then I don't know what the hell he's thinking with Pangai Jr. And again, Pangai Jr. is not a player that should be playing like big minutes. I think 25 minutes impact here and there is perfect for him. I think he can play bigger minutes than what he sometimes does, but I just don't understand. Like, if he's really hooking players for missing one tackle, like he would run out of fucking interchanges pretty damn quickly, And I was losing my mind because the commentators didn't like question it at all. They were just like, oh, he's hooked Pangai Jr. I'm like, are you not going to like say anything like, why did they hook him? Like, what's happening? Like, why are you not questioning that decision? So yeah, Seabold, I don't know what the hell I don't understand. He's lost his freaking mind, and I don't know. I don't think he was ever a good coach to begin with, but he has not done a good job at the Bronx. Then we move on. Ben Teo was the starting back rower, and this one again makes zero sense from Seabold. I love Ben Teo, and I was happy he signed with the Broncos again. I know they've copped criticism for signing a 33-year-old back rower, but I love Teo. He's one of my favorite players, and I think Teo has done a good job since coming in. Playing that impact role off the bench, playing not many minutes, but getting on there, trying to make some tackles, carry the footy strongly. Just as an impact player. Like, he's a big boy. He's a big boy now. He's definitely not at his peak back row 80-minute performance type. He was back in his Broncos and Rabbitohs heyday. But Seabold decided to start him in the back row. Why? Why would he do that? I don't understand why. Because he had Jamil Hopewade and Joe Ofahengaue on the bench. Like, what the fuck are you thinking? It doesn't make any sense at all. Doesn't make any sense. Why would you start Ben Teo in the back row? He's not a starting back rower at this level anymore. Especially, well, I mean, he could be if he had like a proper preseason, but not at this stage. And then Corey Oates, the other back row, I talked a bit about him before. I still don't really understand why at this stage, and why you would mix up your team even more. Like, the Broncos are already struggling defensively, and you're going to shift a winger who's probably only ever played back row in his junior days into the back row. Like, Corey Oates defensive, I actually think Corey Oates has been pretty good in the back row, but there's definitely been a few misreads in defense from Corey Oates' side. And I don't blame him. Like, he's playing a foreign position just when the Broncos are already terrible in defense. It's just a terrible strategy. Like I said, I think Corey Oates could transition into the back row at some stage and be good there, like a Luke Lewis type, but not now. What's the point in taking a gamble now? Like, it doesn't make any goddamn sense. Then Pat Carrigan, the lock, the captain, and I feel terrible for Carrigan because I think Carrigan with Payne Haas and Pangai have easily been the Broncos' best players. Like, Carrigan has been massive. He has been huge. But to make him captain of this team it's honestly, I don't know. I don't even know what to say about it, because that's the thing that gets me. It's like, why? Like, I'm going to go back to Boyd here, but if you're not going to put... Now, I don't think Boyd should be captain. I don't think Boyd should be anywhere near a football field, but if he's going to stick with Boyd, if Boyd cannot be dropped, and he is apparently one of the leaders of this team, why is Boyd not captain? Why is Boyd not the one who has to face up to, like, the scrutiny, and, he's not the one that's out there, having to get the boys up? Like, you're going to stick it on a 20-year-old who's playing, like, his... in the infancy of his career into a team like this. I don't understand it. I understand, like, putting it on a young guy. I have no problem with a young up and coming player getting the captaincy, but at this stage, like, if you're gonna stick with these experienced players, why are they not the ones captain? It doesn't make sense. So yeah, but I don't think Boyd should be captain, but my point is that if Boyd is there, why is he not captain? That's sort of, if you get what I'm saying. Like, if Seabold, what is the point there? It's just very strange. And then we look at the bench, Corey Pay. I think Corey Pay is a good young player, and I think I think he can be a future player for sure. I've no issues or qualms with Pay. I think every time he's out there, he's given it his all. He's always enthusiastic. He's always tackling strong. He's good from dummy half. I've been impressed. Thomas Flegler has been awful. Now I love Flegler. I actually was expecting him to really go on and probably make the Queensland team this year, but he has been terrible since the resumption. I don't know what's happened. He looks extremely unfit, and not physically. Like physically, he looks strong and fit still, but after you just watch him. After he's been out, if he's starting or if he's been off the bench, he's out there for like 10 minutes. He looks gassed. Like he looks so fatigued. And he gives away more 6-to-go penalties. He drops the ball more than any other player. He has been terrible for the Broncos since the resumption. And he's another guy that he keeps sticking with, and Flegler keeps getting big minutes. And I'm just like, why is he out there? Oh, I don't understand. And I don't know. That one might be a little contentious because even the commentators were like they thought they were impressed with Flegler, but I've been watching him and he just comes up with so many errors, so many penalties. It's just he should have been dropped. He should have been dropped a few weeks ago because his form has been terrible. Yeah. He started the season on fire, but he has been absolutely atrocious, in my opinion. Next up, we got Jamil Hopewade, who, again, he's like a Corey Oates and a Zarko type, because he was the one that copped the dropping, which I don't understand. He had like one shocking game where he came up with heaps of errors. He missed a few tackles, but other than that game, I think Hopowade's been like really good. When he was starting back row, I thought he's strong in defense. He's got a good bit of footwork. He's got an offload. I was happy with Hopewade in the back row. And then, not seemingly out of the blue, there were quite a few Broncos that should have got dropped. But out of all of them, he dropped Jamil Hopewade. It's like, what? Why? Like it comes back to the Boyd, Croft, and Milford thing. It's like, they're the guys that need to pick their act up. Like, if someone like a Hopewade, he can have an off night and you're just going to ruin his confidence. Like, I don't understand. And even in that Tigers game, him coming off the bench, he was probably one of our best forwards. When he came on, he actually looked good and he provided something. But yeah, it's another Seabold masterclass to drop Hopewade and then bring him back on the bench. And Corey Oates is starting over him. And then the next guy here, Offengawi, who again, I know Offengawi has been criticised heavily as well. But again, Offengawi's barely played any minutes. Like, I don't know why Seabold is not playing Offengawi. He hasn't been great, but he's barely been on the field. I just don't get it. I just really don't understand what he's doing with his bench. I don't understand what he's doing with some of his players. And yeah, the confidence and form is just, it's down the drain. And like I said earlier, the team he's putting up this week with Niu getting dropped, Milford at fullback, Dearden in the halves. I actually really like Dearden. I mean, Dearden, now you might be like, oh, it's a bit hypocritical. You're talking about someone like Niu being too young for NRL. Dearden's only 18 as well, or 18, 19, somewhere like that. But the difference is Dearden is ready for the NRL level. Like he showed last year. He is definitely up to the level. Dearden is an absolute gem. He is incredibly good. The only reason he was out of the team last year was because of injury. He was actually winning games for them, and he's definitely ready for NRL. But I'm like, you're gonna bring him in against the Storm. he's bringing Dearden in. Oh my god, I'm like actually face palming. He's bringing Dearden in against the Storm when the Broncos are just absolutely devastated. I'm like, what's he gonna do? What? I don't know, dude. I mean, the Broncos might turn up, but like, he's just throwing another young kid out to the Wolves here. It is a bit hypocritical for me to say, because I am saying to drop, Milford and Croft as well. So you gotta put him in. But I'm like, he should have done it weeks ago. He should have done it weeks ago, before the total rot happened. And now it's like it's in dire straits. It's absolutely in dire straits. Now, don't get me wrong. I think when the Broncos actually get some of their big names back, I think the Broncos can perform. But, geez, they have. I've never been more disappointed in a Broncos team. There was quite a few years ago, the Broncos were pretty awful. They had a pretty weak team and they had a really young team, but they were still trying their hearts out. Like and it feels bad to say, and I try to, at times I'm like, things went against the Broncos in this game and this and that, but it's happening too much. It's like they actually don't look like, a lot of the players don't look like they do want to be out there. They don't look like they're trying. So that's the worst part about it. And yeah, I think, the players, they got to perform, but I think Seabold has to take a huge L for the way the team has gone. I think he has contributed heavily to some of the players being just completely out of form. Some of his decision making, and even I was going to talk about this as well. Like a few weeks ago, his team selection, he had. Who did he have? He had Zarko and Dearden on the bench, I think, or it was Tessie Niu and Dearden. He had like two. I can't remember exactly. I think it was those two guys. He had two. Not even. Yeah. What are you doing? It didn't make any sense. He's like, I don't. It's tough. I mean, he's clutching at straws. I can understand like trying different things, but some of the decision making is just baffling. So, not too much else to really talk about. Yeah, I could ramble on about a lot more stuff, but the video has already gone on for ages. I'll probably wrap it up here. I don't know if I didn't like write down things to talk about, but if I think of like another sort of video length type things to talk about, I could make another one. But this one's gone on for way too long as it is, so that'll wrap it up. I mean, I would say, let me know what you guys think in the comment section, but it's going to be, I mean, it's pretty universal. I don't think there's too much, there's not too much that I could say or anyone else could say that's very revolutionary, so to speak. It's just a shambles. It's just a shambles at the moment at the Bronx. So, yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed this sort of rambling rant about the Brisbane Broncos. I know most fans, I know most NRL fans are pretty happy about the Broncos doing badly. The only people upset are Broncos fans, but it is what it is. Every team goes through the ups and downs, and unfortunately the downs here for the Broncos are pretty freaking down in the dirt. But there's always going to be a couple of teams that are pretty terrible, and unfortunately, this year it's one of those teams are the Broncos. So make sure to like and comment, and I'll see you guys in the next one.